Good evening, everyone. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, America's #1 dispatcher and freight broker training. Hopefully, everyone's doing good today. It is Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. This is our Wednesday night edition of our dispatcher training, 6 p.m. Eastern. We usually run, I don't want to run 2 hours tonight. I maybe do an hour. I don't want to hold you guys too long, but we have some new individuals in here tonight. I'm trying to see if I recognize a few names. I see Brenda Castle Davis Levine. I think that person just joined, as a matter of fact, and then a few others. Wise Line is here. Hopefully, you have some questions. Max, what's up? Um, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Alex A.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good, good. So let me start off with some let's do some current events, what's going on right now. As you may know, I'm not sure how much you are following the ports and the ILA and the USMX. What those acronyms and those letters stand for are: the ILA is the International Longshoremen's Association, which are the group of workers who handle uh, the containers and the ships coming into the ports, and the USMX, United States Maritime Alliance, be basically the steamship lines. Uh, they had come to an agreement. They've come to terms, so there will not be a strike. They came to that 6-year agreement. The longshoremen will get a 6-year contract, pay increase. No more, not a lot of automation, because that's what they feared, a lot of automation. If there was a lot more automation, they would have lost their jobs, things like that. Um, so that is the most current thing that's came across my desk as far as transportation is concerned. How does that um, directly or indirectly affect dispatchers, which is what you guys are studying to be? Well, it would have affected your carriers, coming into and out of the ports at some point. If there was a strike, that means that freight movement would have ceased for a while, depending on how long the strike would have been. So, being that that was averted and it no longer exists, the strike that is, you can get your guys, if you have carriers that are running into the ports, you can start to get freight. So before I even go on with that, let me see if there's any questions from a previous training, or if there's something that you want some clarity on. Um, does anyone have a question? No, no question. Okay, all right, no problem. That's good. Sometimes it's a good thing, right? You don't have any questions. That means you are either wanting to listen, or you're brand new, or you understand what you need to understand. So, for my wife told me, because she does the admin stuff in the back office, that there are a lot of new people coming on tonight. I see Alex Abrams, Brenda Cazale, a few others, Danielle, names that I don't recognize or that I may have overlooked, which please forgive me. Jeff, I'm actually broadcasting in my office at the car wash. I didn't have time to get to either my office at Exodus Logistics Learning Center or to my home office. So I told my wife, I said I won't make it home tonight until after training, because I'm in my car washes. So thank God for the internet. Um, Alex Abrams says, I have a question. I don't know if you already answered it though. What is your question? If you can unmute yourself, um, Alex. Can you unmute yourself? If you can't unmute yourself, you can also type your question into the chat box and I'll see it there also. So either way, just want to make sure I see your question. I have a question. I don't know if you answered it already though. So in the meantime, while I don't know if Alex is male or female, because Alex can be a male or female name. So in the meantime, while you are either trying to unmute yourself or typing your question into the chat, are there any other questions that anyone else may have?
Your mic is turned up.
Yes. Person called iPhone unmuted. Well, they were. So no. Okay. Well, anyway, let me get into the new individual spiel, if you will, when people first come into this training and what to expect. So, oh, okay. Alex just put the question. I haven't actually dispatched yet. How will I be affected by the strike being so new? Sorry, I was with my son. So you haven't dispatched yet. It means you haven't had a carrier. So it won't affect you because you don't even have a carrier yet. But if you did have a carrier, the strike would have affected you if you were dispatching, well, primarily if you were dispatching an owner operator or a truck driver who had a power unit that was going into the ports, or if you were dispatching a owner operator or a truck driver who had one of the three major equipment types, which is the dry van, the flatbed, and the reefers. I'm in our portal now. I'm showing you the screen of the three equipment types. Because freight would have stopped, shipments would have stopped. So shipments first coming, the majority of the shipments or the goods that's coming into this country come in mainly uh by the ocean, and it gets picked up at a port mainly. Sometimes you got air cargo, sometimes you have rail that comes into the train terminals. But for the most part, it comes in through a port and it gets picked up um, by a uh, chassis trailer with that container. So type a one in a chat if you can hear me. Max said he cannot hear my audio. So everyone else can hear me. So Max may have to restart his system. Yeah, let me see. Max, restart your system and log back in because everyone else can hear me. Okay, good. So if there was okay, his audio's back. Okay, thanks. Okay, so if there was a strike at the ports, right? That's the majority of how freight is moved in this country, imported into the country, right? Again, you have air freight that comes into the air terminals or the airports via the tarmacs and the tarmac and the air terminals in the back, the air cargo terminals. You have rail that comes on the trains, the rail yards, the rail terminals, and then number two, and then mainly you have the ocean ports with the cargo vessels or cargo ships and those thousands of containers stacked on those ships, which need to be offloaded when they when they dock into our port and they get offloaded with the gantry cranes or the reach stackers onto a chassis to be delivered, which is drayage or drayed to a warehouse distribution center or the final mile destination. If there was a strike to stop that, it would have shut everything down. Nothing would have moved. No freight would have moved. So it would have, whether you had a carrier with a dry van, flatbed, or reefer, or you had a carrier who had a power only who grabbed chassis from the ports, if nothing moves, that means nobody would have worked. That means the dispatcher, would have been indirectly affected because you wouldn't have had a way to get your carrier loads, right? Now, there could have been some small movement because not all freight is imported, goods are imported in the country. We make things in the US domestically that moves throughout the US domestically and doesn't get exported out of the country. There are manufacturers in this country that produce products that get shipped just around the country. So there would have been some small movement there, but you would have had to have understand how that worked and the niche in that, right? The majority of movement comes from imports and exports. So But as a dispatcher, that was a great question. I'm glad you asked that. From our perspective, we would have had a major dent in the movement of freight because we rely on imports and export of goods into this country and out of this country. So, great question. Okay. Any other questions before I proceed? And again, let's welcome to all the type of one in the chat. If you are here for the first time, if you are a newly enrolled student who just recently joined. Okay, Kazel, Danielle, and then iPhone. iPhone, can you identify who you really are? Like your name? Brenda's a student, new. Andrea. Okay, I'll change that to Andrea on my end so I can know who you are. And Andrea, where's iPhone at? There she is. Okay, let me rename it. Andrea. There we go. Andrea. So welcome everybody. So when you first enrolled, yes, class is lit, Shay. Oh, Danielle says she's not a new student, it's just her first time in the meeting. So when you first come into here, enroll in the course, my wife should have sent you an email directing you, or you should have, prior to even enrolling, you should have got a custom sign up where you set up your email and password to be able to access, once you do enroll, this area that you see on the screen now, which is our back office members portal, which contains all of our tools and resources, everything you need that's going to help you navigate this ecosystem we call dispatching, right? And so, and it's broken down into columns, right? So let me give you a brief overview of that. This first column where it says start here, right? So kind of obviously that you will start there, right? Our orientation. I won't click each one specifically unless I need to make a very detailed point, but I'll just give a high level overview of what it does and what it is, okay? So the orientation basically is what it is, orientation / eBooks. The orientation, it's a small video, says, hey, welcome. Thank you for joining our program. Here are your next steps, and here's what to expect from the training moving forward. So, and then the eBooks we offer in this enrollment, we give you 3 eBooks for free, or that's included in the enrollment, I should say. 3 eBooks and a glossary of basic terms to get you started. So that's there under start here, okay? Next, our business information. If you have not, which is okay, if you have not already set up your company, your business with a business name, a business structure, whether it's sole proprietorship, whether it's LLC, limited liability company, whether it's S Corp, C Corp, if you haven't done that, refer to the business information section and get some information about that. So you got to come up with a business name. What are you going to name your company? And that name concept is important. Your structure, how you want to structure it, LLC or whatever you want to structure it. And you want to put an EIN to it, right? An EIN to the name. So that is important, setting up your company. Now, some people may ask the question or pose the question, do I need to have my business in place? Well, here's 2 questions. Do I need to have my business in place before I start the training? That's number 1. This training, or any training for that matter. And number 2, do I need to have my business in place before I start to dispatch trucks? So what do you think the answer is to the first one? Do I need to have my business in place or set up prior to training? Yes or no?
No.
No. Correct. You don't have to have your business. You could be in the process of establishing a company while you're getting the training. In other words, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Question number 2, do I need to have a business in place prior to dispatching a truck, a carrier that I've acquired? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, everybody's saying yes. So theoretically, yes. Theoretically, yes. Now the question becomes another question, a sidebar. Do people or can people dispatch or do people dispatch carriers without having their business in place, a business set up? Yes. I'll give you an example of one. Me, 7, 8 years ago, now I dispatched about 2 or 3 trucks prior to setting my business up and getting it established. But once the business got established, the revenue that I earned from dispatching those trucks, I rolled into the business for tax purposes so I can account for that income. So you don't want to be slick with it if you're going to go that route. You don't want to be slick with it. And I do not promote or encourage people doing that. So the answer to that question is yes, you should. It is a wise decision to have your business in place first before you start dispatching for a truck driver. It just makes you look more professional, right? You're more professional. You have a company. You are an established business. So you're behaving as a business person, right? So that just makes sense, right? So that is under the business section under here, and we talk about those things. Next, under the start here column is the core concepts of this portal, of this back office portal. We call it the meat of the portal, which are our modules, our self-paced modules. Each module has its own quiz, uh, study questions, information, content about it, and it goes into detail about what the module talks about. Like module one, and it has a certain order to it a little bit too. So module one, get carriers, speaks about, it talks about the equipment, how to get the carriers, the ways of getting carriers, the types of carriers you should focus on, where to look for those specific carriers in certain areas of the country, what type of equipment types, what type of equipment type carriers you should focus on first as a new dispatcher to make your job as a dispatcher easy, right? And we go into the 3 major equipment types there. We always talk about that because there's a reason for that. We'll get into that later. So we're just talking about different ways of getting carriers, how to understand and carrier. So I'll use different terms: carrier, truck driver, owner, operator. These are similar or synonymous terms. So I'm just meaning it's pretty much the same thing, right? So that's module one. So you can't dispatch anyone until you have a carrier to dispatch. So that's why module one is called what it's called. You got to get a carrier first. Module two is, well, after you get a carrier, how you gonna find freight for them? Well, our primary resource or our primary method as new dispatchers to find carriers, we use what's called a load boards or software that the brokers and the shippers, and we'll get into what that means because I know there's some people in here who are new, so you may not understand what a broker is or who a broker is and who a shipper is and what their purposes are. But we will explain that as you progress in this training, you will understand the methodology and the workflow of that process later on. I'm just giving you kind of a high level overview of that right now so you can kind of begin your journey. But the load board is software that we use as a dispatching company, a dispatch service, to search for and find loads or shipments or cargo or freight or goods to put in the trailers of our truck drivers, carriers, owner operators, equipment type. Okay? Whether it's a dry van trailer, a flatbed trailer, or a refrigerated trailer, or any other type of trailer equipment type that you may be dispatching for that carrier. Okay. We talk about the process. Getting the loads from the loads is according to the carrier's requirements or their profile. So when you get a carrier under a contract, you're going to send them, one of the documents you're going to send to them is called a carrier profile. What that does is they fill that out telling you how they want you to find their loads. Specifically, like, I don't want loads weighing a certain amount of pounds, certain number of pounds. I want to go to a certain region of the country. I want to make so much cents per mile, or I won't move my truck. Um, I want to do this. I don't want to do that. So you put certain categories in your carrier profile documentation, and we provide templates for this. You're not going to be on an island right there. We're not gonna leave you um, bare, if you will. We provide the templates for you to follow and go by, and then you tweak those templates according to your philosophy of how you want to run your dispatch service. Okay, so module 3, booking the load. So once you find some freight for your driver, for your carrier that your dispatching service has provided, you have to speak to the person whose load you're trying to move for your carrier owns, which is a freight broker. The freight broker is the person who posts those loads for sale on the load boards, and you find that load. If it meets your carrier's profile, now you're going to have a conversation with the broker about the requirements of the load, what are the specifics, and make sure it meets your carrier's requirements. Okay. So, and then lastly, after your carrier picks that load up, delivers it, and about to get paid, invoicing speaks about not invoicing from the carrier's perspective, but invoicing from your dispatch service perspective. How do you get paid? You get paid by invoicing the carrier for your service of dispatching. You provided that service, you should be compensated for such, right? So that's a high level overview of dispatching in a nutshell. Now, throughout this 90-day journey with this self-paced training, we're going to go over this over and over again, go through examples, maybe do some live calls, speak to things. I'll give you scenarios. You'll be able to figure out certain things, how things are done, and to become one of the best dispatchers that you would have ever known. Right? So before I begin again, are there any questions before I move on to the next topic? Okay. So this first column, we just went over just briefly. The second column is support of the self-paced modules. The second column right here are tools, documents, and resources that you're going to need as a dispatcher to help you in your journey through these 4 modules. What do I mean by that? The first one, forms and documents, contains, as a dispatch service, all the necessary forms that we believe you need to be a successful dispatcher, and all the necessary documents you need to be a successful dispatcher. What is an example of one? A form or document that you would need as a dispatch service in order to, in our opinion, in the Exodus Dispatcher 101 training, for you to be a successful dispatcher, we require, or we suggest, I don't want to say require, we suggest that you have a dispatcher packet, right? What's called a dispatcher packet, right? It contains 3 documents. The first document is the dispatcher agreement, okay? That is the contract, if you will, between you and that potential carrier that you're going to be dispatching for, right? It says, hey, I'm the dispatcher, you're the carrier, I provide this service, you agree to what I'm providing to you. If you come to terms to that, sign here. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, let's go into forms and documents right here. Dispatcher packet contains 3 documents. Again, the first one is the dispatcher agreement. Here is a template example of ours. Okay, that you can tweak and change to yours. Now, this is a PDF version of it. We have a Word version as well that you can download to your local computer and tweak that to your specifications for your dispatch service company. Okay. But the point of the dispatcher agreement says, so everything that's highlighted yellow is where you're going to fill in and replace with the information that you need. This is only a 2-page document. Okay. So right here where it says dispatcher, and then in the yellow block, dispatch or dispatch company, you're going to replace all of that yellow with whatever the name of your company is. Okay. The phone number, you replace with your phone number. Just because you may not have a professional or business line yet should not prevent you from putting a personal number or any number that the carrier can get a hold of you. The carrier can care less whether you have a business line or your personal cell phone when they need to give you a call when there's something important they need to get done. Right or wrong. They can care less. I can call you at 1-888-555-1212 or 757-515-1684. As long as I get a hold of somebody who can answer my question, I don't care what line I call them on. I need to get a hold of somebody. This is important. Does that make sense? So don't let the fact that you don't have a business line yet stop you from having a dispatcher agreement. Now, once you can start off with a personal line, and then once you get a business line, just retweak your agreement and change it to the business line to look. Because I know some people they want to look so professional. I get it. I want to look professional, make it look real nice. Okay, I get that. But don't let wanting to look professional stop you from getting a carrier, right? Same thing with the email, whether it's a personal one or a business one. And obviously, if you don't have a website, don't let not having a website stop you from having a carrier fill out your dispatcher agreement and getting under a contract with them so you can start moving loads and making money. Okay. So don't get too, it's not that deep, in other words, right? It's not that deep because the carrier just needs a way to get a hold of you. Okay. You have these other parts right here that doesn't have a yellow in it. This is where the carrier, the truck driver, they fill this part out. Everything that's in yellow should be pre-filled out and saved before you send it to the carrier as a PDF. I need to make that too because some people may consider sending a dispatch contract agreement to a carrier as a Word document, which is not recommended because it can be changed and updated and tweaked. It's more of a challenge to do it as a PDF, sending it to a carrier who may or may not know how to edit a PDF. Okay. And the PDF is just a page document format. That's all it stands for, PDF. Okay. So right here, the carriers, whoever the carrier, let's say I'm the truck driver, someone sent it to me. Let's say Jeff sent me a dispatch agreement. His information is already filled out. I will fill out my information once I received it. Like here, I, the truck driver, let's say I'm called XYZ Transportation. Truck
So,
number. Go
so
ahead.
Charles, how would you change this sheet, the paper sheet, to a PDF to send to the carrier so they can fill them and send it back to you?
Great question. Let me show you. Let me open up a Word document and share the screen. So I'm gonna share that screen of this Word document. And let me know when you can see the Word, just a blank Word page, right? You see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So let's say you created your you're creating your dispatch agreement from scratch, right? You just downloaded our thing. So we'll just call it who's asking this question, by the way? Who's
Moonlight,
Oh, Moonlight. Okay. So
Moonlight LLC.
let's say Moonlight LLC dispatch service, right? Just as an example, dispatch services, right? And uh you say dispatch agreement, and then all the other stuff is in it, all the verbiage is in it, right? Let's say you had all the right verbiage, and I'm just putting it here right now as a header, right? As a title. So I'm gonna center it. I'm gonna enlarge it. I'm gonna bold it, maybe underline it, maybe color it blue or whatever, right? And you got all the other stuff in there already in your agreement, right? All your verbiage in there. Hey, this is a truck driver. I'm here. I'm him, or whatever, right? Everything that you need. You save it as a Word document, right? To have it saved official. So I'm going to call this. I'm just going to save it on my desktop as an example. Moonlight Dispatch Services, right? So I saved it. Okay, you saw that, right? I saved it to my desktop, my local desktop on my local computer. You can also save it to a thumb drive, to an external hard drive, to the cloud, whatever you want to save it, right? Offsite for security reasons. But to make it a PDF, you want to go back and say File, Save As. Okay, you see this little box that opened up?
Yep.
You go down here where it says Save As Type. It's a Word document right now.
Mhm.
So first of all, I'm going to choose a location where I want to save it. Again, to the desktop. And then go now down to Save As Type. Change it from a Word document to a PDF. And then hit Save.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
now it's going to change it. Now you have both a Word version of it and now a PDF version of it, which you will send to your carrier, the PDF version. Because again, if you send the Word version, they can edit that, right? It's a little bit more challenging for them to edit the PDF version unless they have software that can edit that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right?
Yep.
Did anyone else, everyone understand that, right? How we just did that. Changed it from a Word to a PDF.
Yes.
This is what you would do with all of the carrier profile. So the 3 documents that make up the dispatcher packet, let me reshare the screen. Can you guys see the back office with the dispatch agreement, carrier profile, and limited power of attorney?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 3 documents that you will need to make up your dispatcher packet, we just talked about the first one, a dispatcher agreement. We have it in Word and PDF format. The carrier profile is next. Remember I said earlier when I was going over the portal, the carrier profile is the carrier's way of telling you how they want to run. Let me enlarge this a little bit. Okay. They're telling you, hey, I want so many cents per mile. I want so much weight on my trailer. I want to go in a certain direction. I don't want to go in this way or whatever. That's what the profile is. It's their requirements, their specifications, how they want to run, right? So this carrier profile, this is a PDF version of it. I do have a Word version of it, which is right here, that you can download and edit to your specifications again, right? So carrier's profile. It contains the carrier's general information. Now you create these documents from our template, send them to the carriers, truck drivers, owner operators, for them to complete and return back to you, making your relationship with that carrier official, right? And legally binding, of course, because you have a contract now with the dispatcher agreement. That's how it's done, okay? So the first one was the dispatcher agreement. They filled it out, went through it. Oh, by the way, the service fee for your dispatch agreement, you could either charge a percentage per each load that you find for that carrier, or you can charge a flat fee for the week. Okay, this is in your dispatcher contract, the dispatcher agreement. So people ask, what are those numbers? The percentage range we often go by is between 5 and 10% per load. So if you found your carrier and booked them with the broker a $3,000 load and you charge 8% for that gross booking of that $3,000 load, how much do you stand to make from that? What is 8% of $3,000?
So if you charged 10%, you
No,
get $3.
8%. 8%.
8%? Okay. I thought you were asking a percent.
240.
240. 8 times 3, 24, right? 240. Correct. If if you charge 7% of a $3,500 load, how much you stand to make? I'm just making sure you guys understand how to calculate percentages. I just threw a monkey wrench at you a little bit. I'm bringing out my calculator too. So if you charge 7% of a $3,500 load, you're making how much? 245, correct. So all you're doing now is just simple math at that point, right? You're just taking a calculator and typing in, let me share the screen with the calculator. Right here. So if you charge on a $3,500 load, you book the load with the broker at 3,500. That's what the broker is paying to the truck. So whatever the broker pays to the truck, whether you negotiated it higher or the broker was firm on whatever the rate is, let's say that number was 3,500 at the time, and you charge, let's say 8% of that. You just take let me go back. 8% times that number. 8% equals 280 or whatever the percentage is, whatever the number is. That's what you invoice the carrier for when they deliver the load and they're ready to be paid. Then you send them an invoice for your service at that price. That's the invoicing piece. Now, if you negotiate more on top of that, which you should, because your money should be on top of the load, the original posting of the load at the rate, to take it from the broker side as opposed to pulling it from the carrier's pocket. And we'll talk about that. I don't want to confuse you guys. We'll talk about that later on down the line in more trainings, the process and the workflow of brokering later on. But just to give you the invoicing piece, right? And then the flat fee. So the percentage is between 5 and 10% per week. I'm sorry, per load, 5 and 10% per load. And the flat fee, if you decide to go with that pay scale or that payment method for your services, flat rate per week, we say between $250 to $500 per week. So the question becomes, well, which one is more profitable in the eyes of a dispatch service? And let's say we do 3 loads for the week, and we charge, let's say on the flat rate fee, we charge $500 for the week. Let's say we do the max, 500 per week, right? And then we do the percentage, we charge, let's say 8%, right? So which one will be more profitable? I'm getting $500 for the week, but I booked 3 loads, and each load paid, let's say, $2,500. Okay? So each of the 3 loads paid $2,500. I'm gonna bring the calculator up just to give you an example of what could be more profitable for you as a dispatcher, for you to decide on your dispatcher agreement if you're going to take the percentage route or you're going to take the flat fee route. So here's an example to bring home that point. So 500 a week for 3 loads at $2,500 a load. 3 loads. So your carrier is getting paid $2,500 a load. Each load, he did 3 loads for the week. So 2,500 times 3 is 7,500 for the week. You booked him 3 loads for the week at 25 each. He made 7,500 a week for the week, right? You charged him for those 3 loads $500. Okay, you guys with me so far? You guys with me there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
So that's the flat fee rate. You chose the high end of the flat fee, 500 a week, irregardless of the amount of the loads and how many loads. You did 3 loads, 20. So now let's give me a percentage. 7%, 8%. Let's choose a percentage.
8%.
How much?
8%.
8%. So the same 3 loads, right? You book for them at 2,500 per load times 3 loads for that week still equals 7,500 for the carrier, right?
Yep.
But instead of getting 500 a week, you're charging 8% per load. So you're going to take 7,500 times 8%. You made an extra $100. So depending on the percentage and depending on the flat rate range to determine how much you charge, you can choose which way you want to go. So you can decide which way you want to go. Hey, what's up, Jeff? I see you now on the camera. How you doing? So
I'm trying to keep listening.
that
I
gives
don't want
you
to leave.
an idea of that. Okay.
So I can't.
So you can decide which way you want to go. Okay. So let's go back to the screen. Let's get off the calculator and go back to any questions about that before I continue. I want to make sure you guys are good on that. Any questions there before I move back to the screen?
Is it better to go higher or lower with the percentage?
Great question. Who was that?
Evelyn.
So with the percentage is most times is based off of your level of understanding and experience as a dispatcher. If you are brand new and you know nothing about dispatching and you're coming in new, you don't have any experience yet, and you're just getting training, it wouldn't be fair or wise to charge 10% to a carrier and you don't have any experience doing it. I would say anywhere between 5 and 7 because you're new. And then as you gain experience, let's say you get your first carrier, you charge 5%, 6%, so you can get your feet wet and get some experience. Let's say a year passes and you're doing well in dispatching, you get a few more carriers. Now you got some experience. Now that may warrant charging a different percentage for those new carriers than it will for the original carrier at 5%, because now you've gained some advantage and some leverage. Now you understand it a little bit more and you've got some experience under your belt. You book loads with brokers with the first carrier to get some. It's just like in life. The more you do things, the better you become at it, right? The more repetitive you do things, you get better at it. You gain that experience. You gain more knowledge. You get experience. We age, right? That explains gray hair or experience under our belt, right? We went through life and we got things now. So. But yes, so as a new dispatcher, I would recommend 5 to 7% or 5 to 6%. 7% is the sweet spot. That's the middle ground. That says you're not new, you're not green, you're not an expert either. So that's a fair starting point. If you're on the fence and deciding what percentage to go with, 7 will be a good one to start with because that's a fair starting point. And then as you gain experience, you can go up with new carriers. Okay. So.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
All righty. Let's go back to the screen. All right. Can we see the other screen?
Yes.
All right. So the dispatch agreement. So this is the dispatch agreement. It's basically lining up the verbiage. You can read through the verbiage. Now, if you want me to break down the verbiage line by line, type of one in the chat. I can do that now if you'd like.
So what do you use for invoice?
Invoice. I use Square, PayPal. You can use Invoice Home, QuickBooks. There's so many of them out there. You can basically, the choice is you based off of the features of the invoice software. What do you look for in invoicing software? Finding one is not hard. It's what are the features you're looking for in it? That's gonna and how valuable that software is to you. The most popular ones are the Squares, the PayPals, QuickBooks. Sometimes your well, not necessarily. I was going to say something there, but that doesn't apply. But yeah, so QuickBooks, Square, things like that. So, okay.
So do you think it's best for the carrier to pay you for every load right after, or should you wait for a week for the carrier to pay you?
That's your choice. That's a great question. So every dispatch service has the option to choose the frequency of how you get paid. That's your choice. You have some dispatch services that says, hey, I booked this load. Once you tell me you deliver, I'm going to shoot you an invoice. Or you have another dispatch service says, hey, I booked this load for you and 3 other loads. I'm gonna invoice you every Friday for the loads I booked for you previously in that week. And we'll do that every Friday, going forward. So if I book you 3 to 4 loads a week, I'll invoice you a total of 3 to 4 jobs at that rate or at that percentage, as opposed to invoicing you each and every time. Because sometimes that can get tedious, and it's more, especially as far as tracking and documentation and paperwork. If you invoice them one time a week, that covers all the jobs they did. That may be easy for your dispatch service. For another dispatch service, it may be easy to invoice them individually after each job, as far as paper trail purposes and things like that. So,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
yeah. And LaDonna just says she likes to wait weekly for convenience for the carrier and myself. It gets pretty busy booking a load and invoicing. That's a lot. So, yeah. So, again, it depends on the service, the company, the dispatch service. You guys, and you have the complete autonomy or the complete choice because it's your company. Whatever decision you make is made for your company. You're the boss. But of course, you want to do what's best for your company. So that's probably why you're asking the question. But yeah.
So for the for those getting a carrier, you think like it's best to have them if they don't have a factor, it's best to have them join a factor. That way I can get paid on every week. Because if they don't have a factor, it could take them months to get paid. And if they don't get paid, they don't have money to pay me, right? So
So what this Moonlight, right?
yes.
So what Moonlight is saying, for those of you who are new and may not understand what he's saying, is carriers can have what's called a factoring company. What transportation invoice factoring is when a carrier delivers a load, if they want to be paid quicker and upfront, like let's say the same day or next day, because sometimes carriers can get paid with a concept called quick pay through a factoring company or through the broker, depending on the time of day that they delivered the load. If you deliver it before a certain time, before 3, 4, or 5, you may get paid same day because that company may do their invoicing within that time. If they deliver it after that time, they'll get paid the next morning or the next day. Factoring companies provide that upfront service for a fee to help carriers with cash flow so that they can keep running their company, buying fuel to go to their next load, so on and so forth, and perhaps paying the dispatchers also for the service. Also, some factoring companies participate in paying dispatch services the same time that they pay the carriers for that load when they turn in those invoices or those PODs for proof of delivery. Not a lot of factoring companies participate in the dispatcher piece, paying them at the same time, but a lot of the factoring companies, as a matter of fact, all of the factoring companies pay the carriers up front because they provide that as a service. They give them cash flow. It's like a payday loan thing. You go to the payday loan, you put your check up against a loan, you borrow $500 and say, I'll pay you in 2 weeks when I get my check. And they'll say, give us $500 plus whatever interest they charge for the ability or the service of doing that, giving you that upfront money. That's what factoring companies do. Okay. So, and then some of them do participate in, again, paying dispatchers upfront as well when they pay the carriers. So, but not all of them do that. So, but Moonlight asked the question that would it be advantageous for dispatchers to work with carriers who do not have a factoring company and run the risk of not being paid as soon as they expect it? Because if they don't have a factoring company, then they may be relying on the payment terms of the broker. And the broker may have a term of, like, let's say net 30, net 15 or whatever. And the carrier or the dispatcher can't afford to wait that long for that money. They need that money. Because for the carrier's perspective, they got to get fuel to put in their truck. to move on to their next load. From the dispatcher's perspective, as a business, you don't want to wait a week or two or a month to get your money. You provided that service a month ago. Why should I wait a month to get paid for a service I gave you a month ago? So these are some of the things you want to consider too, as a dispatch service. And we'll get into that as well. How can you factor in the factoring company piece in your dispatch service when you are dealing with carriers, whether they have a factoring company in place already or not? Okay. So that'll come later on. You will see that as you progress. Most carriers you're going to get, I can guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you, I can say with about 80% certainty, most of them probably will have a factoring company. If not, they will go through the broker's quick pay option to get paid up front. So in most cases, you shouldn't have to worry about being compensated for your service of dispatching. Okay. I know that may be a concern, Moonlight, but it shouldn't be.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So where were we? Dispatcher agreement. I had to ask the question, do you want me to go through line by line? And a couple of people said, yeah, so I'll touch up on a little bit. The first part here is what you create. The second part here is where the carrier fills out their information, their MCDOT and things like that. Hereby grants authorization and permission to you, the dispatch server, let's say ABC Dispatch Services, to act as my dispatcher or logistics manager, whatever you want to call yourself, for the sole purpose of, this is what dispatchers do. You search for and you book the loads for your carrier. You process all broker paperwork for your carrier, which are 2 pieces of paperwork, which we'll go into. And you and obtaining and or submitting all necessary documents required in order to book those loads for your carrier. All necessary documents required, we will go over that later on, maybe not tonight, but when you get your carrier under a dispatcher agreement with these 3 documents, you're going to need copies of the carrier's documents or their qualifying documents in your possession as a dispatch service. Because every broker you're going to be booking loads for them are going to be vetting them or qualifying them for their brokerage prior to giving them their loads. And they require certain documents in order to do that vetting process. Well, what are those documents? Well, we will talk about those in a later training, what they are. I can just mention them now. We won't go into detail, but every carrier who is an authorized motor carrier governed by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, requires an MC number, an MC certificate, or an authority. They require an operating authority. Every carrier. If you get a carrier who cannot provide you a copy of their authority, you should not dispatch for them or contract with them because you're never going to be able to move a load. If the carrier does not have the authority to transport commercial freight via interstate commerce, you can't make no money with them. It's a moot point. So, you need a copy of their other necessary document. Required is a copy of the carrier's certificate of insurance. Every carrier you dispatch for needs to have insurance to cover what they are transporting. I mean, that makes sense if you think about it. Why would I not insure what I'm transporting in order to get paid for transporting it? Says the carrier, right? So, and the 2 types of insurance on the policy are liability and cargo. The amount of cargo is $100,000 minimum. The amount of liability is $1 million minimum. Okay. So you got the certificate authority, you got the certificate of insurance, you got the operating authority, I'm sorry, and you got the operating authority certificate, and you have the certificate of insurance, and then a third document is the W-9. Every carrier should have a W-9, which says that they have a company, a business with an EIN number in their name of the business for tax purposes. Okay. Those are the three standard necessary documents required that you, the dispatch service, should get a copy of from the carrier in order to complete your setting up process between you and that carrier, that driver, that truck driver, that owner operator you're going to be dispatching for. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm the type of instructor that before I move on to different topics, I make sure that everyone understood the previous topic. Because what's the point of moving on if everyone didn't get it, right? So, this paragraph here, all billing and invoicing and collections of revenue from shippers, brokers, and factoring companies are the sole responsibility of the carrier. What does that mean? Let's break that down a little bit. And remember, again, this is just the dispatcher agreement. But let's break down the verbiage so we can get a little bit more clarity of what we're saying here. So all billing, because carriers bill, they invoice, and they collect revenue from, there are three ways that the carrier gets paid right here. They get paid directly from shippers. They get paid from brokers, which you're going to be dealing with because you're going to book the loads with a freight broker for your carrier. So they get paid by the brokers. And or they get paid if they have a factoring company, because sometimes the factoring company steps in on behalf of the carrier, pays them up front, and then they go after the brokers on the back end to get the money. Okay? So all billing, invoicing, and collections of revenue from shippers, brokers, and or factoring companies are the sole responsibility of the carrier. It's their trucking company, so it is their responsibility, right? Unless, and I'll just say it in layman's terms instead of reading all this, unless you and that carrier have some kind of prearranged agreement that you assist them in the billing, invoicing, and collections of revenue. So outside of your initial task of being a dispatch service for that carrier, if you want to provide extra services of invoicing, billing, and helping them collect their revenue, you can do so, but I would advise you charge for that service because that's an extra service. Your main task as a dispatch service is to do what? Is to dispatch and get paid for that. If you are willing and have the time to provide extra services, then you should be able to be compensated for that. Because remember, your time is just as important as anyone else's. We all have the same amount of time in a day. Everybody's time is just as important because once the time goes, you can't get it back. Okay? So, does everybody understand this paragraph right here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If revenue or payment for a shipment or loads is uncollectible, you, the dispatcher, will be held harmless and no penalty or deduction of fees will be made. Makes sense. Why should I? Why should I, the dispatcher, be held accountable for the carrier not being paid revenue for a job done either from a shipper, a broker, and or a factoring company, which are the three people who are responsible for paying the carrier? Why should the dispatcher be involved in that? I am not responsible for paying the carrier, says the dispatcher. I am responsible for helping them find a load and to get paid for doing so, says the dispatcher. Right? So, but it needs to be on paper and documented so that it can be documented, paper trail, and spelled out. This next paragraph, the dispatch service, you guys, will be held harmless in the event of any and all claims against the carrier, and the carrier will still owe you money. They still have to pay you for services rendered, right? So what is the claim thing? So if you found a load for your carrier, you dispatch a load for them, you talk to the broker, you book that load, rate confirmation, the whole process. They pick the load up, everything was good at the pickup, the shipper. They transport the load, it's being transported safely and securely. They get to the receiver for delivery. They get to the loading dock, start to offload it. The receiving manager at the facility opens the trailer doors, sees that the majority of the pallets in the trailer of your carrier's equipment were slid and slanted and freighters damaged. Probably because your carrier didn't strap them in and secure them, whatever. And then in transit, those straps popped and the freight was shifting all throughout the journey, right? The receiving manager is going to reject that shipment and they're going to file a claim for damages. Well, all of that has nothing to do with you, right? That's why you will be held harmful in the event of that. Again, you're just a dispatcher. You don't control, nor should you, whether or not that carrier should have strapped their freight down securely. That's not your responsibility. Now, you can remind them, of course, but still, ultimately, it's up to them to do it. So you are not held liable for any claims filed against the carrier because you were not there. You didn't do anything. Okay. So that verbiage needs to be documented as well. So these things are here to protect who? You. Because sometimes people try to roll dispatchers into nonsense, right? But if you think about it, you have nothing to do with that. Okay. So everything else is kind of self-explanatory as you read through, get their signatures and all these other things. But this is the dispatcher agreement. This is our template of it. You can tweak it how you see fit, change the verbiage. As long as you get the main gist and the points of it, you should be fine. Other than that, are there any questions about the dispatcher agreement?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah, who is that?
This is Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
One is if the load is rejected,
Okay,
I believe you said that the carrier is still responsible for my fee.
correct.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Is that the case if there's an accident and the product gets damaged or um, the carrier can't deliver in a timely manner? At any point, is the dispatcher can he lose his fee for something that's really out of his control, like an accident or load being damaged?
There are points where that can happen, and there are points where the dispatcher can be like merciful. But as far as technically and legally, once you contract with the carrier and you perform your duties of the contract by booking them a load, and they agree to take that load and sign the rate confirmation and do everything that they're according to the dispatcher agreement, then both parties are involved in a legally binding contract. If one of them breached that contract, the other is due the monies for the contract, right? That's in everything. So, but you could be merciful as a and most dispatchers do this. Like I've done it. Like I had a carrier. Let me give you an example of what I mean when I said all that previously. I had a carrier. I booked a load for them. They picked the load up from a shipper, transported it safely and securely to the receiver, got there, and unbeknownst to them, the partial load was rejected. Like a few pallets were damaged. Let's say it was 20 pallets. About 3 of them were kind of damaged. They had what's called concealed damage. I'm not sure if you know what that is, but you may have a box that appears to be in shape on the outside, but you may have some freight damage on the inside, like broken glass or whatever. That's called concealed damage because you can't see it, right? So the pallets, they were damaged because the receiver inspected it and said, "Hey, man, we can't accept this freight. It's damaged. We're gonna partially reject this, right? Now, and we're not gonna pay you for a portion of the shipment that was damaged, right?" So the carrier got paid for the portion that they accepted, right? I was merciful with the carrier, saying, "Hey, I won't charge you a percentage for the amount of the load that we booked it for, which is 2,400. I'll change it and charge you for the percentage of the amount that they're going to pay you for, which was like 1,800. So instead of charging you 10% on 2,400, I'll charge you 10% on 1,800 to kind of show you that I kind of understand what happened in it and be merciful like that. Now I could have been a butthole and said, "Hey, I don't care. I'm charging you 10% of 2,400. I don't care if it got rejected by the receiver and they only gave you 1,800. I'm going to charge you 10% of 2,400, so you still owe me $240 as opposed to $180. So there are examples where you, the dispatcher, can be, a little lenient, a little merciful, and understanding with your carrier. And that goes a long way because it'll help, build that relationship better and that rapport better with your carrier, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Max said they have two questions to ask, and then Alex said, "How would you change it? Do you have to send another agreement?" No. So you would change it by, instead of invoicing them for, let's say your original load was 2,400 and you charge 10%, you're due 240. So instead of sending an invoice of $240, you would just send an invoice of 10% of whatever the carrier was paid for after the receiver said we're only going to pay you, let's say 1,800 instead of 2,400. So you simply send them an invoice of, you can cancel the invoice of 240 and send the invoice of 180 because you only now charging 10% of the 1,800 as opposed to 10% of the 24. Okay, you said you got it. Good. Great. Max is next and then Shanta. Max, so you had two questions. Okay, now I see Shanta's hand raised. About the rate per mile. What if a carrier needs $2.80 per mile, whereby the national rate per his equipment type is $2.50? Okay, so the national says $2.50, but they want a little bit above it, 30 cents above, $2.80. How do you navigate properly to avoid losing that carrier? Well, it could be in either finding another load that matches the 280 that's above that 250 a mile, that national rate, or it could be in the negotiation process with the broker, where you can negotiate it up to a 280 per mile when you average the numbers back out. When you put your rate on, your percentage on top of it, and you average it out with the broker. So, but that 30 cents difference is a pretty, well, I won't say pretty easy, but you can make that 30 cents difference as opposed to if a carrier says, "Hey, I want $3 a mile," even though the national rate is 250. Then you got to let the carrier know, well, that may be a little bit challenging, Mr. Carrier, because the national rates for the lane that you're going in and the equipment type that you have only dictates at $2.50 a mile. We're going to have a challenge getting it to $3 a mile. I can try to negotiate up with the broker, but understand if they're not budging, I only may be able to make you $2.50 a mile. Will you still be okay with that? So you got to let them know stuff like that so that you understand what they want, but you got to let them know what the market is dictating and whether or not that's going to be even possible, right? Because some carriers understand it. Other carriers, some carriers will give you like astronomical numbers. "Hey, I want $4.50 a mile. The lane says $3. That's not happening. Those unrealistic type of carriers, I would advise you to stay away from, because they're going to pull your hair out. Because you're going to always be tugging back and forth with them. They don't know their lane, right? They're saying $4.50 they're saying $4 for a 275 cent per mile lane. It's impossible. You can't do it. So, Shay. Oh, I'm sorry. Max, my last question. Go ahead. My question is, how do I get registered on DAT without an MC? You don't. You have to have an authority to register with DAT unless DAT offers a promotional promotion, for lack of a better word, a promotion that says register with us for 30 days for free. Even after the 30 days free trial, you still would have to have an authority to register an account with DAT. And for those who don't know what DAT is a load board, DAT. It stands for dial a truck. That is one of the major load boards, one of the top 3 load boards out here. Dial a truck, DAT, D-A-T. But most load boards, unless they offer a special free trial, you have to have an authority registered with them. And most of you dispatchers, anyway, you're going to be using your carrier's MC authority either to access their already established load board or to purchase your own load board just using their MC. Because that's what I used to do all the time. As a matter of fact, I'll prove the point. So a dispatcher can't get that to find loads. You can get that as a dispatcher if they offer a dispatcher type of subscription, or if they offer a free trial, let's say 30 days to the subscriber. But other than that, no, because dispatchers don't have authorities. So, yeah. But the load boards that you guys are using right now, let me prove a point here. The load boards that you guys are using right now, and I haven't forgot you, Shay. These load boards here, were gotten with my former carrier's MC numbers. I am paying for subscriptions to load boards, and I don't have an MC number. I am using some of my prior carriers, and they already know. Of course, they know. Obviously, I'm not doing it deceptively, but I'm saying that I'm using my prior carriers' MC numbers to pay for a subscription to these load boards in order for you guys to have access to them. And I'm sharing those logins with you guys. That's how that works. Okay. You could do the same thing. Once you get a carrier, let's say you want to get DAT, because most people are under the impression that that's a great load board. And it is, in the sense that it posts the most loads. It's not the best load boards. It just posts the most loads. It's the top 3. But let's say you want an addition to that. Once you get a carrier, just simply ask the carrier, hey, man, we don't have that. I know that you don't have that load boards, and I understand that they post the most loads, and they're pretty good. Can I use your MC to purchase a subscription to the load boards? I'll pay for the subscription to purchase that subscription in order to find you better paying loads. Guess what they're going to say? Yes. Because you're paying for it, and you're paying for it in order to help them increase their bottom line. Why would they not at least consider that? Right? So, Shay.
Hello.
Oh, easy. I do too, especially if I don't get right after it.
Shay, or is it Shanta? Shay.
Shanta.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jeff was saying something about what if something happened to the damaged merchandise on the truck, will the dispatcher still get paid and stuff. So from my experience, I just want to speak on that, because I have experienced it with someone receiving concealed damaged goods, where the box looked good, and then when they got the dryer out or washer or whatever, it was damaged, because when the truck delivered the merchandise, they unboxed it right there so they can see what's wrong before they signed the BOL, and to let them know that everything was accepted and good. Sometimes it may be missing merchandise. Sometimes it may be something damaged. Well, on the bottom of the rate con, the broker always have detailed instructions that you need to read thoroughly and make sure that the carrier read who you're dispatching for, to make sure that they understand that they cannot leave without first calling the broker to let them know, hey, they got something missing or something's damaged, because most of the time the broker would deal with that company, whoever that merchandise is being delivered to, and it still don't mess with the carrier's money or yours. So most of the time the broker would deal with that, but you just got to contact them and let them know, because if you leave and don't tell them, then the carrier is going to be responsible. That way it's going to, mess with their money and yours.
That's correct. And if you leave and don't so anything you don't tell the broker according to the rate confirmation or the broker carrier agreement as a carrier, that's a breach of contract and can threaten the carrier not being paid. So yes, you are correct. Also, Yeah, that damaged freight, it has nothing to do with the dispatcher, but yes, the carrier needs to communicate that to the broker so that they can let the customer know, the shipper, what's going on and what to do next, whether to discard the damaged stuff or bring it back. Because they'll tell them one or the other. Get rid of it, throw it away, you can keep it, whatever, bring it back. Right. But at least the broker knows via the carrier telling them, and then now the customer knows via the broker telling them. Now the communication is there. But if the carrier doesn't disclose any of that and doesn't follow the instructions, like Shanta said on the Raycom, it's a breach of contract. So, and what I mean by breach of contract is the contract between the carrier and the broker. Because when you set your carrier up with a broker that they are not already established with in their system, approved by, that is a broker carrier agreement. That is a contract. And in that contract, it has certain terms and conditions. If by which are not followed, that's a breach of contract. So, yeah.
Hey, Charles.
Yes.
So what's the package that we need to send to the broker to make sure the carrier gets signed up with the a broker?
So it's not a package you send to the broker. It's a package that the broker sends to you or your carrier. Since you're dispatching for your carrier, they're going to send it to you. That is so whenever you find a load on the load board, whatever broker posted that load, you're going to have a conversation with them.
Right.
And they're going to say, hey, man, you want this load? You like the rate? And you guys agree to it. You come up to terms. Then the broker's going to say, okay, what's your MC number? Oh, they're going to ask you the MC number of the carrier because obviously dispatchers do not have MC numbers. So you're going to give them that. They're going to look in their system to see one of two things. If that MC number for your carrier shows as an already approved carrier for that brokerage or not. If it's not an already approved carrier for that brokerage, the broker's going to say, hey, man, your guys are not approved. They're not set up with us, but that's not a problem. Let us send to you our broker carrier agreement. Step one, in the setting up of your carrier with a broker process. If your carrier's MC number does not show as an already approved carrier for that brokerage or any brokerage. Step one would be the broker carrier agreement. This is the contract that I just mentioned earlier between your carrier, your driver, your owner operator, and the freight broker. Okay? That's the broker sends that to you. Dispatchers have nothing to do with that part. The broker sends that to either the carrier or the carrier's dispatcher. Since you are working on behalf of your carrier, then they'll send it to you, right? You fill this out, of course, understand what it is. We go through this thoroughly. It just so happens this one happens to be 8 pages. Some are shorter, some are longer, but there are points in there that you really need to understand, right? But that's step one. The broker carrier agreement, along with copies. Remember I said when you set up with your carrier, you need copies of their credentials, their MC authority, their W-9 and certificate of insurance. Well, when you do a broker carrier agreement for your carrier with a broker and you fill this out, send it to the broker, you also are going to be required to send copies of those credentials. The MC certificate of your carrier, a copy of your carrier's certificate of insurance, and a copy of your carrier's W-9. Those are the 3 main ones because that broker needs to qualify that carrier. And this is how they qualify. The MC authority says, the broker says, I need a copy of the carrier's MC authority because I need to know that they have the authority by the FMCSA to transport goods. Number one. Number two, the broker says, I need a copy of the carrier's certificate of insurance because I, the broker, need to make sure that the carrier has the proper coverage to transport what they have the authority to transport. Cargo and liability coverage, right? 100,000 cargo, million liability. And then number three, the broker says, I need a copy of the carrier's W-9 to make sure that they are who they say they are, with an EIN number as a company. ABC Trucking, EIN number 123456789, or whatever, right? So those are the qualifying documents, the broker carrier agreement and those qualifying documents. Once all of those documents are sent to the broker by you on behalf of your carrier, the broker will bring those documents into their system, qualify that carrier, and says, hey, you are now, or your carrier is now an approved carrier for our brokerage. Let me now send you, to officially book this load, let me send you a copy of the rate confirmation for that particular load that you initially contacted me for. Right? The rate con. Here's a copy of one. And I'll enlarge it. So the broker carrier agreement and all those supporting documents gets your carrier officially onboarded or set up with their brokerage. The rate confirmation officially books the load, or that particular load by which you originally called that broker about. Okay? That is the two-step process of booking a load for your carrier with a freight broker. And you're going to do this all the time, repetitively, where it becomes second nature to you. Right now, you are just coming into the understanding of what this is. But once you start doing it over and over and over again, you're like, oh man, this is easy. I just got to make sure that my carrier has, and that's why you as a dispatch service want copies of your carrier's qualifying documents, because for every broker that you come across on a load or from a load board that your carrier is not set up with, they're going to ask for the same documents in order to qualify them. So as a dispatcher, would it not make sense to have copies of those documents in your possession already? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Right. So let's think about this, guys, right? Let's just think about it, right? It's like common sense, really. You know, if you know that every time you get with a broker that your carrier is not set up with, they're asking for the same thing, would it not make sense to have copies of the same thing from your carrier? That way you're not chasing your carrier down every 5 minutes for every broker, for every load you're trying to book for them, and say, hey, man, by the way, I know you're driving right now. You can't really stop to give me these documents. But when you do, can you send it to me? Well, by then, that load is gone. Somebody else got it. So would it not make sense during the initial setup process between you, the dispatch service, and your truck driver, the carrier, to get all the necessary documents from them up front prior to even going after any brokers yet? Get all the necessary things you need up front, and then you'll be all set to go. Doesn't that seem more professional? Right. That makes more sense. It's more professional. And it's more efficient. That's the word. That's a better word I'm looking for. It's more efficient. You're very efficient now because you have everything in your dispatch service portal folder, you know, digital copies of everything, so you can go ahead and dispatch efficiently. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Any questions? I want to wind down a little bit now. I'll cover briefly. Let me cover briefly before I wind down, though, because I covered the dispatcher agreement. We were talking about the carrier profile also, which are the carrier requirements. I at least want to touch on the three documents in the dispatcher packet. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry too. This Saturday we won't have class because that's the beginning of the next month. That's beginning of March 1st. So that's this Wednesday class ends the 4th week of this month, February. And I'll have the calendar out for, I should have mentioned this in the beginning of the training, but that's fine. You won't see it on the calendar for this Saturday class. We won't have class on Saturday because that's March 1st. Okay, and we have classes every 2nd and 4th week of each month. Let me do a caveat real quick, just to divert a little bit. According to our calendars, right? I always put a calendar up each month. This is February. So every 2nd and 4th week of each month, 3 days in those weeks. The second week, the Sunday is they're the same days and times in the second and fourth weeks. Sundays at 11 a.m. in the second week, Sundays at 11 a.m. in the fourth week. Wednesdays at 6 p.m. in the second week, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. in the fourth week. Saturdays at noon in the second week. Well, there's no Saturday at noon in the fourth week because that's the 1st of March. So if this was a leap year and this was the 29th, then we would have that class. But right now it's not. So that's why I'm saying that there's no class this Saturday. I will have a March calendar out by the end of the week for you, just to bring that up. So I just want to make sure I mention that before we get off of this training tonight. Okay. But back to the carrier profile, which is the second document in the 3 documents on the dispatcher packet. Okay. Again, the carrier profile is just the requirements that the carrier wants of you. And again, you create this profile and send to the carrier. As a matter of fact, you create all the documents and send to the carrier. You create the dispatcher agreement, you create the carrier profile, you create the limited power of attorney. Send them out, they fill them out, send them back. And particularly with the limited power of attorney, they not only send it back, but it has to be notarized to make it official. Okay. But the carrier profile is this. It just talks about the specifications that they want. So if I'm a truck driver, go ahead, Moonlight.
What if the carrier is already like what if like I went to a truck stop looking for carriers and then find one in a truck stop and then and he's working and I guess I gotta wait till he get home and get this the power of the power of attorney letter to get it notified.
Right.
You know,
So whatever is the most convenient method of having that document notarized, whether they do it electronically or they physically go to a notary public to do it, there are different ways now. You can even do it over the internet, electronically, or an in-person notary. Or you could wait. You could talk to that carrier at a truck stop, have a conversation with them, and say, "Hey, man, I see we're on the same page. I'm going to give you you brought your documents with you. You brought your dispatcher packet with you to the truck stop, which is smart in case you do get a carrier who's interested. You say, hey, man, in your downtime or when you're doing your hour reset for your hours and you're not driving the truck, maybe that'll be a time for you to fill out the documents, get them notarized. So by the time your clock starts again and you're ready to drive again, I'll have these documents in my possession and I can start dispatching for you. Something like that.
right. So don't start dispatching until that letter get notarized.
Right. So let's go there. Let's go to the limited power of attorney since we're talking about that. Now, the purpose of the limited power of attorney is just this. This is the purpose of the limited power of attorney. Limited power of attorney. All it is the carrier's way, the truck driver's way of telling you that you can represent them in matters of booking the loads for them. Meaning that when you get a copy of the broker carrier agreement, when you're trying to get set up with a broker for your carrier, you can fill that out on their behalf. They don't have to fill it out. They're giving you permission to do it for them, signing their name, printing their name. Same thing with the rate confirmation. They're giving you permission to sign their name, print their name. That's what the limited power of attorney is. You're giving up limited power of authority to undertake and perform the following acts on my behalf. That's what the carrier is saying in the limited power of attorney right here.
All right.
And you are the attorney in fact, which is the dispatch service on the limited power of attorney documentation, and the carrier is what's called the principal. So the said attorney in fact shall have limited power and authority to undertake and perform only the following acts. And there are only 2. Completing any and all broker carrier agreements for any and all brokers that you're setting up your carrier with, who they're already not set up with, and completing any and all rate confirmations after getting approved for any brokerage. So Those are the two things you need a limited power of attorney, because those two things need printed and signed representation. The carrier needs to have having signed and print those documents to make them official. Well, if the
And
carrier, go ahead.
we don't need to send this copy to the broker at all, right?
No,
That's in
these
our
three,
folder, in
this
my
is for,
folder.
right, this is for your internal self, for your dispatch company, for each
Okay.
and every carrier. So for each and every carrier, let's say you got 3 carriers. Each carrier will have a copy of the dispatcher agreement, or each carrier, I'm sorry, should send you a copy of their completed dispatcher agreement, carrier profile, and limited power of attorney. You do not have to send these to the broker. This is between you and the carrier. This makes you and the carrier legally binding. The broker has nothing to do with this right here.
Okay.
All of these templates available when you sign up for yes, they are here. They're already here. They're in our back office portal under forms and documents. So you must not be a student already, but I'm just showing you what our back office portal. The person who just made that comment right there. I think it was iPhone. Yeah, iPhone. So yeah, in our forms and documents is where all of our templates are located. So
So I have a question. Which one would you prefer,
what's that,
like,
Erica?
for the limited authority? So is it better for them to do it electronically or personally go and get that? Like,
If electronically they can handle it, possibly, yes. So,
okay.
yeah. So, any final questions, guys? I'm in Zoom training right now, but
Charles, can you give me that time on the dates that's coming up for March?
so you said, you want the
And
times in March?
yes, I
Uh,
I have
so
the dates down. I just need the times for
so they're
on
always
Sunday.
they're always gonna be the same times. The dates, the only thing that changes on our calendars are the dates for each month, because the second and fourth weeks fall on different, you know, times.
Okay,
But the times for each of so Sundays, all of our Sunday trainings are always going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time,
okay,
whether it's the second week or the fourth week. Okay. All of our Wednesday trainings are going to be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, whether it's the second week or the fourth week.
okay.
And all of our Saturday trainings are going to be always at 12 noon Eastern, whether it's the second week or the fourth week.
12
Okay.
noon. Okay,
12 noon. And they're all in Eastern. I'm in Virginia, so that's Eastern Standard Time. I'm on the East Coast.
okay,
So,
okay. Got it.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any final questions, guys, before we get off?
How is how?
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask you how did the car wash go for you?
Well,
How's that working?
I'm actually here now. I'm in my office, in the back office area of my physical car wash. Now we closed down a little bit early. It's dark over here now, but I didn't make it home in time or to my Exodus Logistics Learning Center to do the training tonight. So I called my wife and told her I'll do it here. I have internet here, so I didn't got my laptop with me. So I said, let me jump on
Mm-hmm.
Zoom and go ahead and do it here so I can still make the 6 o'clock scheduled time.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm actually physically here. We watched a bunch of cars and tractors today, and yeah, it's progressing because it's coming into the spring, and the weather's, it's spring weather over here. It was like close to 70 degrees today, so cars were coming in left and right. So we were like,
Okay.
oh boy. And I got 5 days, so I got 5 workers doing their thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're coming along.
Okay. Well, good, good. Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you for asking.
Uh-huh.
Yep. This recording will be in our portal later this evening. Where is that? Right here. Let's go share the screen. And in our portal, under our, as always, all of our Zoom trainings under the tools, resources, and documents column under the training videos library. Okay, that's where all of our training videos will be. Any trainings in the Midwest? I'm in Wisconsin. As far as what in-person trainings coming, I need to take the show on the road. My wife, our main job was to try to get the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, people coming there, but it's kind of challenging for people to come to Virginia, like traveling. We had a few traveling when we first started, but it's slowed down since then, and this is a new year, so we're trying to think of some promotional ideas to get people to come to Virginia, maybe towards the spring and summertime when the weather's nice and you come and we can do training while we're looking at the Atlantic Ocean on the beach and talk about logistics while sipping on Mai Tais. I don't know, but we can, have something like that. But have an event. So Danielle say yes. And so this area is not bad. It's a tourist attraction. So, Virginia Beach. So it's like, real touristy. So there's a lot to do. There's lots to do here as far as activity. So I just need to get with an event planner and schedule something that can give us time enough out for people to sign up to come to it, and we'll have everything lined up. I just got to find the right person to link up with and to get that done. And because I know some of you guys will be able to accommodate. You may have relatives in the area, travel to the area, and then come look us up, and then come on over. And of course, I'll show you a good time. You won't forget. So, but yeah. So, but we'll do that. So, oh, Shiante, she's 757. Hey,
Hello. I may reach out to you in the next week or may come by the car wash. I'm trying to see what's the next step to do as far as after registering like with sam.gov. Do you happen to know anyone that works with like proposals, writing proposals? Because you have to have one to bid for contracts, correct?
some of them you do. Depends on the solicitation. If it's a government federal solicitation, that if it's an RFP, then yes. If it's an IFB or an RFQ or a QQ, then no. QQs are quick quotes. There's no proposals required. So it depends on the type of solicitation. Again, if it's an RFP, which is a request for proposal, then yes, that's definitely they want a proposal so they can look it over and see what you know. But if it's an RFI, like I have my FEMA one is an RFI. They're just requesting information right now before they decide to give us the go ahead to do the proposal. So it's an extra step. But again, it depends on the type of solicitation, whether it required. But to answer your initial question about someone who helps you with that, when you get registered with SAM, you should have been assigned a counselor, what's called a PTAC
Oh,
specialist.
so Michelle McCoy, she does all of that too.
She either does it or can point you in the right direction. So you're Apex
Okay.
Accelerator or you're a PTAC specialist, your procurement training assistance counselor should be able to point you in the right direction. They're paid by the government or in some cases by the state to do it. So it's a free service for them to provide that to you.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. All right, guys. I will have this video again. This in front of you is the training videos library. We are in February, so if you were to click February, you should see Sundays, Sundays training as the most recent one from the far left, which is the 23rd. Yeah, this past Sunday was the 23rd. So and then this other one is from the previous week, and so on and so forth. So it starts from the left. The most current one starts from the left and then moves towards the right. And this is February training videos right here. And then it goes down and it keeps going. And then it goes to March training videos, so on and so forth. And I can go back to the top. There are hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of training videos in our back office. This is valuable by itself, right? If you didn't even have access to everything else, the resources, the how-to videos, the tools and resources, and everything like the training videos itself can point you in the right direction. So there's so much back here for you guys. I'm so proud of this back office, and it's going to continue to get enhanced more so also. And we're constantly updating stuff. As you can see, where it says new, this stuff is new. I put this in here new as we get current with the supply chain, with transportation, with logistics, and I feel that it can benefit either directly or indirectly dispatchers, I put it in the portal. Hands down. So there you go.
Go back to this portal again. How you get there?
This will be under the tool. So in the main portal, the back
Oh,
office,
yeah,
tools and resources.
tools and resource. Okay.
Yep, tools and resources. And then we got carrier shippers list, carrier list. You looking for carriers? You go to carrier list. Right? You go to trucking
Okay.
plane, you get the carrier list. And we got major interstates publications. Somebody looking for a notary. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, electronic notary. We got hot market areas, National Weather Service, trucking trailer, all these different trucking directory right here. So we got different resources here. National
Yeah,
Weather Service. So
gotta
it's
check
just,
that out.
yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, I've actually forgot some of the stuff that I placed back here. It's been so long. But so for you guys, it's here like all over the place in this one little page area here. But once you start dispatching, you're going to create for yourself your own particular type of system of dispatching where you can access the resources how you see fit. The resources are there, you just put them together because everybody dispatches differently. You all are your own independent dispatchers. There is a common standard of dispatching, but everybody does that differently. Hopefully you guys understood what I said there. But you get the point. We are different people. We do this sometimes we do the same things, but we do it differently. So that's the point. So it's joking. Anything give the program like a lifetime membership to resource? I don't know. I have to think about that. iPhone. Anything to give the life program like a lifetime. So yeah. Okay. So I'll have the calendar up with the new March schedule. I would say by Friday. Maybe even tomorrow, because tomorrow's an off training day for me, and I got to get a lot of stuff done around the house. My wife's gonna have me do a lot. I can see it coming. So, but yeah. All right. But okay, guys, thank you for your time. I appreciate. We had a lot in here tonight. We had like 18 or so, but some people stepped out. But there used to be a time we first started this back in 2019, 2020, that I had to expand the Zoom capacity from 100 to 300. We used to have over like 100 to 150, 200 people at a time in a Zoom call. This same Zoom call, we used to have that many people in here, right? And we were booming and doing it and doing the same thing we're doing right now. So,
Yeah,
someone asked a question when joining, do students have a lifetime membership? So here's how it works. And Ladonna says yes. So Ladonna's been with me since day one. So she knows. When joining, do students have a lifetime membership? You can. So when you enroll, you have iPhone access question. You have your enrollment covers 90 days access. After 90 days, if you want to continue to have access, you can do that on a monthly basis, month to month for a subscription price. Like starting in March, I believe it is, or April, is for the new people in 2025, it'll be $39.99 a month. For those who have been doing it prior to that, they are grandfathered in at a lower one. I think it's like $29.99 a month or something like that. But the point is it's a month to month subscription. So if you're paying month to month, if you decide to pay that lifetime, then so be it. But your enrollment gets you 90 days, 3 months access already. And in a week prior to your 90 days expiring, my wife sends out an email asking whether or not you want to continue. And if so, she will create that monthly invoice for you automatically and then send it to you, and then you can cancel any time when you decide to do so. Okay. So she keeps that. She does a very good job of keeping that going. So that's I keep that task for her. So, all right. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much again. Oh, let's say, okay, thanks a lot. I'm signing up tomorrow. Okay, very, very good. I appreciate that, iPhone. Thank you very much. We've had, to be honest with you, we had a little slowdown in our signups, but our trainings have still been consistent throughout the year, in last year and this year. So sometimes you have ebbs and flows in certain industries, and the transportation industry is not exempt from that. So, but you just continue to do what you still need to do for the industry, and things will come around. So it's just our turn to go through the storm. But once we come out on the other side, the sun will be shining. Okay? And we'll see the rainbow. So, all right, guys. All right, Andrea.
Thank you. I'm learning more and more every day.
All right, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I am
I didn't
glad to
know
hear
nothing
that.
about dispatch, but I'm learning more more.
That's good. I love to hear that. That makes me as an instructor very proud, and to know that my efforts are not in vain. So, and that's what motivates me. So we all have our level of motivation. So that what motivates me. As long as the information in my head can be transposed to you guys in order for you guys to make a living for yourselves, then that's well served. So, all right. And that's makes me proud of what I do, and love what I do. So, all right, guys. Thank you guys, and have a great rest of your week. And I'll see you in March. All righty.